Hello and welcome, I'm Mystical, this is Mystical Gaming and we're back in the Watcher of Realms, as you can see. And now, the other week I'd done a Semrah boss. I put in a defense down on the boss and it took me from where I was, it put on about another 5 and a bit K onto my damage. So I went from 15 and a bit into 2021, gusting 22 on a good run, that sort of thing. But it's not really enough. You want to go from 15, you want to go to 30. So I got to 2 key to 30, which was nice, but I want to 1 key it, which gives me then time to work on Apocalypse 2. So I employed a good guildmate, Sebastiancanes. I thought if anyone can, Sebastian can, get me from that 20 to that 30 mark. So this video is mostly my chat with him, his take, his theories on how he looks for and how he divides up his team that he's looking for to do Semrah. Now, if you're going for 30k, let's not beat around the bush. You're going to have put some good gear on your champions, okay? So that, without being said, other than that, it's his idea on how he builds teams and that sort of stuff and what he looks for. And it really is a good take on it. So he has had a look at my team and he has helped me out massively. So let's jump into the video. So this is Sebastian's team up here. He's doing the 33k. He's happily 1 key in it, and as you can see, he's using relatively, I'd say, free-to-play friendly-ish teams with regards to the champion. The gear, that's a different story altogether. It's going to take you a while as a free-to-play player to get that amount of gear, and it's going to take you a lot of runs. Or, as we all know, the RNG is beautiful here. It could take you very few runs and you get the gear in no time whatsoever. So, spoiler alert coming up. If you don't want the spoiler alert, hop ahead. But essentially, that was my team. I ended up smashed through 30k quite happily, just hit auto, let it all die without any worries whatsoever. And a lot of this is from Seb's planning and what he does. So the video is quite long, I do apologise for that. So make sure you've got a cuppa, get yourself comfortable, have a listen to the man himself. Right, I'll catch you later. Hello and welcome, I'm Mystical, this is Mystical Gaming and we're back into Watcher of Realms, and today I am joined by my friend and guildmate, Seb. There you go. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. Sebastiancanes here. Yes, we are guildmates. We're in the Forerunner, so you're running an account in Global as well, right?
Yeah, I do my Forerunner account free to play, and then the Global one, I just stick whatever the game gives me in there.
Yeah. So you and I have essentially seen some of the gameplay or the new content before everybody else did, and we got to toy around with it, and the game's looking promising. So anything new is always welcome.
So here's your team, and you're doing 33k damage.
Yep. So that is the one that I ran this week, and I pretty much, once I got to 30k, I just said, let the boss do whatever he wants to do. But this is kind of the other team that I had that I put together just to quickly through it, do the damage, get out, and we're not going for world records here. We're going for something that is not going to be as time intensive. So. That is the team that I tried out this week. There is another variation that I did published as a video. If people want to go look at that one. That one had Magnus instead of Valeria. So
okay,
the landscape for me has changed a little bit because I did pull Pradius in this account, so I get to play with them at least in Apocalypse 2. So
yeah, that changes the landscape a lot, doesn't it?
So then it allowed me to move Valeria in a little bit, and I can't remember who else I moved out. There was another epic that I was using, but then I decided this time around I'm going to use Micah just to see how well she does, and she did okay. I can't remember exactly what the damage that she did, but when I needed that burn, she applied it. So just.
Okay, so
damage.
When you make a team up, who are your must-haves then?
Okay,
so where do you start? Do you say I must have?
You're going to look for 3 to 4 very powerful DPS, right? For Apocalypse 1, you can get away with Damus if you don't, if your count is not loaded. Damus is one that you can always look to if you want to. If you have a spare, very heavy DPS heroes, you can use them there. But you saw mine here, I'm taking advantage of Valeria, I'm taking advantage of Damus, I'm taking advantage of Abomination. And Abomination actually also serves me somebody that can apply a stun when his ultimate is active. So we can then contend with the first arm of the battle. Valeria is just there for pure DPS, right? So her timings are going to be very specific as to when I activate her ultimate, but when I can get her to do the damage, she'll do the damage. So if she wouldn't lose HP as frequently, she would be higher on the leaderboard here in terms of damage. Wrath, as we know, moving into the game in Guild Boss, he does very well early on. That's why you get him as a 14-day reward. He has the Lord bonus. So this is kind of my my cheap version of the Nightmare Council team. We know that they do very, very well in Guild Boss battles, and so that's why I selected him there for that purpose right there. So that's kind of the DPS components. Everybody else is kind of support. Micah was there to do some damage as well, and I wanted to test her magic damage in terms of penetration, just to see how well her ultimate did, and just to add a little bit of an extra oomph to the battle. So if you want to talk about the composition, that's my starting point, is bringing 4, maybe 5 people that can do damage. Okay. But if I can add something in addition to that, to the DPS, such as the stun with Abomination, and then, the burn, defense down with Ares, those are all extra, right? Those are you're just adding frosting to the cake. So they just kind of then form a nice little compilation there that allows you to then make sure that you can deal, especially with the second mode, the shield mode. As he starts getting his stacks, he has less damage reduction, or he gains damage reduction, then at least you're going to have the DPS to last that particular mode, right? And then for this example, of course, Dolores I'm bringing in for inspiration.
Start your team, I'm going to have 4 DPS. You start there.
That's pretty much the starting point, right? Correct. So you can see in the bottom there, King kind of had the same ideology as well. I'm going to try to bring 4 or 5 DPS. So he settled on Hex, Silas, Arrogance, and then Wrath I would put in there, and then Ares. Not only is he giving you defense down, but he's also adding a little bit of damage. And then after that, he was just looking for, it looks like support. People that would in some way, shape, or form add something to the battle to make sure that the DPS are able to get the damage that he needed.
You start with your 3 or 4 DPS. You then put in a Dispeller, if you have them, and then you start panning out with what you termed as frosting on the cake. So support champions that are going to aid you, whether that's Dolores, whether that's defense down, or anything like that.
Right, correct. So then now remember the mechanic of the slam, right? So the slam is, it does AoE damage to the whole group, but then it will the rock will then fall into the
one big hit.
The one big hit will fall into the hero that has the most HP. So typically some people like to bring in a defender or a tank to stomach that. Now, for me, I picked Livian, and that's because Livian can apply a stun with her basic. Other people like using Azor as well, because he can apply stuns when he's in his heated state. So you have a couple of options there in terms of which tanks you want to bring. Very early on, when Semrah was introduced, I was playing with Aurum because he would give that damage increase boost to the heroes. But as I started playing around with the compositions and evolved, Livian was the one that I settled on for the cheap version of Apocalypse 1 composition. So she is my go-to for this. Some others, because they can contend with the first arm without somebody like Livian, because they're bringing in somebody like Nassim, for example. then they would want to bring in somebody like a Soldi. And the reason that they like a Soldi is because she has damage reduction or allies around her. So that's one way that you can stomach the hits if you need to. So if you don't have a very stacked account, those are kind of 2 or 3 defenders that I named that are easily accessible. And let's be honest, a sword is easily accessible in terms of putting a composition together for Apocalypse 1 here. Now, in the example of King here, a Guildmate King, you do not see a tank, but that's probably because he used Volca. So he probably tanked Volca and then used her as the tank. And I don't know if maybe he had Invigoration on her. So not only does he use her as a tank, but then he can use her as to invig somebody if he needs to.
For stuns in phase 1, do you look at taking the sword damage, or do you just look at knocking it down a little bit? Or
remember that as the battle goes on, he does build a little bit more, right? So the first time that he could slam you, you could get away with it having just 6 stacks of damage reduction. But 6 stacks of damage reduction the third time, he'll slam you. It just his attack increases. So you want to make sure that you can bring somebody that can add a very good amount of stacks. And if you bring somebody in that can bring damage reduction, even better, because then you're going to be able to stomach that a little bit more. So I think for mine, if the RNG hits correctly and Abomination's ultimate goes off when I need him to in the third arm with Livian, I only have to stomach that hit the 2 times, right? He just goes once. But at least I can build 6 stacks of damage reduction on him.
Oh, right, okay.
Right. So, like King probably used Nassim. Nassim goes nuts.
Oh, yeah.
He goes 12 times easy if you activate him early. And then you can get out of it.
Yeah, let's have a quick look at his Nazim. Now, I assume, you need this artifact on Nazim, don't you?
Yeah, you build up.
That way he's ready every time. And now he's got the moral set on as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's the guy that he picked for that specifically. Yes, correct. And he just built him for survivability, it looks like, and speed. And that's exactly what you need him for. Nassim is not going to be a DPS unit here. He is going to be a support unit for this battle. So that's exactly how he used them. If you decide to bring Nassim, you're not bringing him for DPS. Build him as support. So you can either add Invic on him, or like King did, he added morale on him. And he was the hero that he selected for that purpose.
So you place your tank down with Invigoration set.
Therefore, yes, you could do that, and then you do Invig on 1-0. Now, for my Forerunner account, if I had a good morale set, a tanky morale set, that's what I would put on my tank.
Yeah, because that gives you your extra 4% straight off, doesn't it?
4%
damage on everyone else.
Yep, and then I think that would speed up my run as well. And then once I hit 30,000, I just let Semrah do whatever he wants to do with the composition.
I suppose you haven't got to worry about your timings of placement. So with the Invigoration set, you've got to make sure that you've got your DPS down, then the Invigoration set down, then your next DPS, then the next Invigoration set.
Right, exactly. And then with the morale set, no, it can be the last one. Whenever you put him down, put that unit down, that triggers the 4%. So it doesn't matter when you place that. But given that Volca here had the Invigoration set, I'm assuming that he had to place either, I'm going to say, Arrogance down before he then put Volca right beside him. And then he could come in with the platform units and invig them with probably Midan and Hollow here in the example of King. So in my example, I did invig on Damis and Valeria, with the it would have been probably Midan and Hollow, and then I can't remember if I had an invig on Livian, but if I did, then most likely I would have inviged the Wrath. So
you have 4 Invigoration sets ready to go for your
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
But if you're limited in your Invig sets, of course, Invig your stronger DPS. So in my example, it would have been Valeria and Damis. Yeah.
So when do you decide to nuke then? When do you build up those ultimates? Do you wait till the boss is weak in between those stages? Or do you say, actually, stage 2, I'm going to have problems with. He's going to build up a lot of shields. I'm going to DPS at the start of that to get so he doesn't build up the shields. Do you say, oh, there's a poison cloud. I don't want to sit under the poison for too long. I'm going to DPS then. What's your plan on using ultimates?
So very early on in the battle, so we're talking. So Apocalypse 1 and Apocalypse 2 are two different things, right? So for Apocalypse 1, wait until you get him into the weakened state, then start popping out. Or when you see that bar getting close to like 5%, if you just want to go ahead and slam him and get as much damage as you can early on, get it going, right? And when he is in a weakened state, he takes more damage. So that's when you want to use him. If you now are in the probably, you go through 2 or 3 rounds of the battle and you come into the shield mode and you see yourself struggling, right? Like you're only at 70% and he already has 5 stacks. You're going to want to use your ultimates. You're going to want to get out of it as soon as you can before you run out of time. You cannot wait, right? For the poison. In the third arm, so going from the second to the third, sometimes I sacrifice on the weekend state, some of my ultimates so I can save them for the Drake's arm. So if I get sprayed once and I know that I'm going to have a hard time on that third spray, then save the ultimates for that particular phase, so I can bring them down as quick as I can. So that's kind of the timings that I use here in Apocalypse 1. In Apocalypse 2, though, that is really all dependent on how much damage you're doing over time. So if you're running through the gauntlet early on, then just slam them in the weakened state. But if you're struggling to get out of the face, use them when you can. That is that approach that I use. Now, the heavy hitter teams that are in my guild in global, Dragon Slayers #1. These guys have everything timed out so they can use at least one ultimate during the phase and then come in and try to use it right at the end into the weakened state. So everything is optimized accordingly. Those that are pushing 120. So, but for Apocalypse 1, since that's what you're trying to push, is I'm trying to do it in the weakened state early on, and then if I think I'm going to get into trouble with in the latter portions of the battle, then I'm going to use them to try to get out of the faces.
How much attack do you need before you start building crit damage then? Do you say, I want 15,000, 20,000, or...
Yeah, so...
Where's your threshold? Because I presume this boss has got much more defense than the Guild Boss one.
Well, and then remember that the second mode, the shield mode, he's getting reduction.
And as you go on, yeah, like you say, he goes into, what is it, overtuned mode or something like that, and he ups his stats.
Overtuned, but yeah, exactly what it is. The HS mode gives some damage reduction, so it's going to take a little bit more oomph to get him. Now, in Apocalypse 2, I have heard the sweet spot is around 18.5, so if you can push 19 to 20, that would be perfect. With Hyperion, you can do that. So you always have to take that into account in your builds as well, because it won't show the stats from Hyperion. So go look at your Hyperion really quick and say, okay, so I'm going to get it 4% extra attack. So take that into account into your build. Okay. For Apocalypse 1, at least what I'm figuring with my builds out, I can comfortably get to that 30,000 threshold with 15. So that's what I shoot for. So, yeah, so so all of this here does not reflect into the build when you're putting champs together.
Yes.
So just keep it in mind. It's like, okay, I'm getting 16% extra attack. So I think what people are doing is that they're trying to put like 18.5 into their build, and then Hyperion pushes over.
How many rotations can you do? Or sorry, how much damage do you expect to do per rotation? And then how many rotations do you think you can actually realistically do? Because he gets harder each rotation.
Correct.
And there's a knock-on effect to that, isn't there? The poisons come on there's more poisons that go on, there's more poisons per stack, that sort of thing, isn't there? So each rotation gets harder and harder.
Yes, exactly. So, so at least for that run that I just did with Semrah 1, I was trying to keep track to make sure that by the second go round, so when he did the 3 arms twice, that I was around the 19,000 or 19,000 mech fragments, because then I knew that if I could survive that third Drake's arm and contend with 3 sprays, then I could push it past the 30,000. So that's exactly what happened in this run. So I was able to get out of it with, cleaning, dispelling 2 of the sprays, healing, and then have 1 stack of poison on me, get him into the weakened state, do whatever damage I could, build Midan's Rage, clean myself up, and then just did a couple more rotations to get to the 30,000. And then by the time I got to the Aegis mode, I just let it go. And
it's all on auto, and that's it. I need no more.
I mean, exactly. I just click auto ultimates, and I just kind of let it go, and the boss could do whatever he wanted to the composition. But once I hit 30,000, I wasn't really looking to do anymore and just get out with the key.
As a not stacked account, who would you say are the lookouts for people then? Who are the golden little champions you think don't get enough? I mean, I see Volker around quite a lot. I think I'm going to play around with her because she has that damage reduction coming in, doesn't she? She gives us nice healing for people. So I'll probably slot her in my team. I think she's accessible for everyone.
Yep, Volker
would you say?
Volker not only does the vulnerabilities to physical and magical damage, but she also brings in damage reduction. So she can give you a stack of that, and that's what she's great at. And if you bring her with a Nightmare Council composition, of course, you're going to add attack speed to your team. So she is very accessible. I think I had, like I said, Livian was another one. Let me see who else I can suggest here based on... Oh, I think I mentioned Azor as well, right? So Azor is one that you can bring in if you want to deal with stuns on this. And other accessible heroes that we get. So Wrath would be another one. Pretty much, so aside from the ones that I selected up top there and the ones that we mentioned, let's see here. Early on, Mariel was somebody that was testing for her heal. It's just her defense is too low sometimes, and she can't really stomach that slam at times. And that's unfortunate, but because she could be like a mini Constance and stuff like that. Now, if you have like Aurum would be somebody that you can take advantage of his damage increase buff that you can bring into the battle as a defender. You can put him in a morale set if you want.
You think he's got a place in the game now?
Yeah, exactly. There are other places for him as well. I mean, they're going. I know a defender of Azor that will tell you that he can do very well in places where you need to deal with swarms. So he has a place in the game. It's just he's one of those heroes that needs to be A5 to really shine based on his kit. Now, Micah would be another one, right? She's a fusion. She's an accessible hero that you can bring in. Don't sleep on Damus. I know that some accounts overrun Damus when they're doing Guild Boss, or early on when they're just focusing on Guild Boss, because if they summon Silitu or Arrogance, Damus gets shunned to the side. Yeah, but he can actually do some very good things in terms of DPS. Let's see here. Let's see. I was gonna say you need LON, so I don't think I need to mention her. Hollow. I mean, if you need a good healer that can boost your rage, bring in Hollow. That's another one that you can use. Aside from that, if you're lucky, if you're lucky enough with Ancients and you happen to be, your account just grabs Carnelians, that's another one that you can bring in, because not only does she gives you the Soul Essence to give you 1 extra life, but she will actually give you damage reduction That's somebody that you can bring if you wanted to. And then aside from that, we have our legendaries, the very popular legendaries from the Nightmare Council that can do a lot of damage. The Arborers are excelling, of course, in this content as expected with Pradius and Alice.
Just pulled.
You know what? That's how I took out. That's how I took out. So I substituted Micah for Alistar. So in the video that I did, I had Alistar in there, and Alistar has a damage reduction in his kit, and aside from the radiant erosion, so he does damage over time. That's how I took out, because I have Pradius. So Pradius and Alistar are going to combine with Jira for Apocalypse 2. So that's why I took him out. But if you were around for the Alistar fusion, that's another one that you can bring in. That was easily accessible to bring into this battle.
My team, then, I should be looking at 4 DPS, and then the other spaces are there for support: 2 healers, a dispeller, and 4 invigoration sets. Or
if you want to flash your roster really quick, and we can kind of say, here are the heroes you can possibly use for 1, and then here are the heroes you can set aside to try to get whatever chests you can on 2. Because I think 1, you can get away with using a lot of epics if you wanted to. I mean, if you wanted that team that you have there, a lot of those heroes I would say for a couple Apocalypse 2, to be honest. Because you probably have.
Let's clear 30k before we do that first. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's what you're trying to do. Okay. So yeah. So my suggestion would be, with this composition that you have laid out here right now in front of me, you should be able to clear 30k, no problem.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need a dispeller. I don't see a dispeller there. Oh, sorry, Ellen. So yeah, you should be able to do it, right? Because you're gonna be bringing those. You have defense down. You have Percy there for inspiration and healing. You have Jira for damage, I'm presuming. You have Nassim there controlling the first arm. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to clear 30,000 in Apocalypse 1. Now, later on, once you start thinking about Apocalypse 2, I would save heroes like Eobar, Silas. I would put those aside, because you could do a Piercer team in that regard there. I see you have Alistar, so he would be good if you wanted to bring him into a composition for damage reduction. You have Salazar, so do you have Torador?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
So then you would pretty much want to use, so you pretty much using your Nightmare comp here, because you're using Wrath. So you don't have anything to boost your Nightmare Council heroes for 2. So that's the unfortunate part about using here Wrath in the first one, because you wouldn't have that boost to bring in like a Volca, Salazar, if you wanted to into that mix. So I see you have Lost. You have Lost. You don't have Arrogance though, right?
Yeah.
So
obviously,
yeah. Well, sometimes you have to go with what you have. I mean, look at the team that I put together for 1. So I would say, if you just want to clear, if you want to do 30,001 right now, you can go with the top. It's fine. I would probably get away off the Nightmare Council, bring in a Pyrus or Twinfin if you have them to boost Silitu. And if you want to use Jira, you could do that. You could use Volca for the damage reduction, and that should push you through, because you'll have 1, 2, 3. Who would the 4th be? I don't know. What else? Did I see a Nocturne? Is he close to A5 or A3? Because if you could form an Infernal comp there if you wanted to. A1. He should do us. Oh, you have Sutram. What are you doing? That's it. You got your Inferno. You got Piercer Inferno for 1 if you wanted to. If you just wanted to get 30,000. Yeah. Yep. But down the line, yeah, for 2, Oh man, yeah, that would be. You have some very good heroes that you can use on 2.
Okay, so I should try the Piercer and Infernal run this week, and then if it goes wrong, it's all your fault.
Yep, you can go ahead and get me on Discord and say you were wrong. This did not work out.
It's just terrible.
Yes, but you do want to make sure that you bring in somebody for the stunts or for the first stun to control the stun. So you can use, if you wanted to, you could use Nassim, right, to do that and put him in the morale set if you have a good one, or put somebody else in the morale set. But then the other one, and I hope you did the fusion, is Helga. Helga works well for that too. If you got her artifact, you're going to build that rage really quickly. So don't forget her as well. Yeah, so you kind of have the ideology there, so that's good. But I would tank him up a little bit more. You're not bringing him for damage. He's just there to support you.
So do you think the game needs to add more Dispellers, or would you like to see maybe after, I think the next shard summoning is the Epic Lord, isn't it? Epic Lord Archer, which will fit very well into Geared Raid 3. Would you like to see the next one, another Dispeller?
So that is something, that is something that we've had conversations with. I would really like to see an accessible Dispeller, right? So we know Elowen is the common champion of pools, but she's really hard to summon. And then all the other ones are in the Ancients. So you need Ancient Shards to get there, right? So the nice thing about Apocalypse 1 is that if you are able to get top chest, you're going to have a chance to get those Ancients to hopefully then get another Dispeller in the future. But we need that. We need that specific, more champions with that mechanic. The alternative as well, though, and I don't think people bring this up, is maybe have a hero that can block the debuff.
Oh, so a block debuff.
A block debuff
on people.
Yeah, exactly. So you activate it right before he does that spray, maybe last 10 seconds. And then you got to make sure that the rage is built up enough to come back for the second turn. Yeah. Or if it's not possible, then at least you can then use it on the second turn and you can survive with the first set of poison, right? It's a lot more tolerable, at least in the third round. It's a lot more tolerable to defend 10 stacks, but once you get that 25, 30 added onto you, that's when they kill you. So if maybe there would be a way, I would imagine that people would then prioritize when that block debuff would come up, then that would also be key in extending the battle. So I would say that either one of the two would be how I would approach this. Introduce a hero that blocks debuffs, or one or more that dispel them.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be an interesting mechanic, the block debuffs.
Yep. So many other games have it. Watch Our Runs does not have it yet. Many other gacha games do have that mechanic.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, quite right. So, right. Cheers for your time then, sir. So, any last things you want to say before you go?
You know, just in terms of pushing 30K, just work on your... So put the composition together, bring in, like 4 or 5 DPSs, bring in your supports, anybody that is going to allow you to control each one of the arms. If you have somebody like Lucius, you could bring him in, get those Aegis modes stacks removed. Helga here, she'll help you with the special with the first arm, and of course, your Dispellers are going to help you with the third arm. So then you put your compositions together, and then after that, it's just about making sure you lay out your platform units with your ground units, make sure that they're covered so they can be dispelled, and then just work on your timings. And then, early on, get as much damage as you can on the weakened states. And then later on, you're going to have to make the decision of whether you need help getting out of the faces, or can you save them, your ultimates, for the last part of the HP and then into the weakened state. So, and then you get the damage that you need to go into it.
Thank you very much. Cheers for your time, sir.
Yep. And that hopefully you get 30,000 fairly easy. And then as you start feeling more comfortable, you can start playing with other heroes. And then you can start thinking about forming a composition for Apocalypse 2.
Cheers. Thanks very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. See you around.